So my front camera, I found out my front camera isn't working. Either I'm gonna have to do this without a front camera or buy a new phone. So anyway, as long as you guys can hear me, we're fine. Um, so T, we're gonna discuss the post Money in the Bank because as soon as Money in the Bank ended, the road to SummerSlam begins or began, I should say. Um, so we had the six-man tag match between the new Bloodline, Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, and Randy Orton. They had their promo the night before where they said they're going to obliterate the new Bloodline. Kevin Owens' mom is in the hospital. I hope she's doing better. And I said on my short, if WWE wants to take what they did with Paul Heyman and make them even more nuclear heat than they already were, have them beat down these guys in a brutal fashion, even though Kevin Owens said, despite his mother being in the hospital, he, made a promise that he would beat them senseless. It looks like the new Bloodline beat them senseless. What were your thoughts on the end of SummerSlam or
So,
Money in the Bank?
so
Jumping ahead.
it's okay, man.
We all know what's happening at the end of SummerSlam, but go ahead.
So when you watch the very end of the six-man tag match, and you kind of really see yourself looking into what we already see and what we already know what's going to happen at SummerSlam. So I kind of had thought they weren't really going to do a Cody title match at Money in the Bank just because if they were going to do him versus Solo, they kind of wanted to wait until SummerSlam to do the match. So I kind of think they did a good job of doing the six-man tag at Money in the Bank, just so they're not doing a one-on-one match with him and Solo for Money in the Bank and SummerSlam. We want to keep it separate. So
Mm-hmm.
for them to do the six-man tag, which was phenomenal, especially like giving the Bloodline the thumbs up at the end of the match, I kind of think it was going in the right direction because if you really look at it this way and you give Cody's team the win, now you're looking at, okay, now we're really going to demolish the Bloodlines group early just
Yes.
because, we're waiting for Roman to come back. Now, if Roman comes back, now you're looking at, okay, this is going to be way early for them to demolish the new Bloodline. So now you're looking at 3 to 4 months now. We get the Survivor Series, and the Bloodline's been getting beat for 4 months straight. Now we get to Civil War games, and how do you give the new Bloodline a big victory? Like you could have done it easily at War Games, but I kind of think right now they're trying to build up everybody's um, stamina come up to SummerSlam, just because when Roman does come back, we already know from SummerSlam here on out to the end of the year what's going to transpire once SummerSlam starts happening.
Yes, for sure. Now, I did read an article before we went live that there's some backstage news on when Roman Reigns is reportedly coming back to WWE from his return. Now, it looks like WWE is planning a return the SmackDown before SummerSlam. I don't think that's a good idea because you want to have that big pop. You want to have that big return at SummerSlam. But if you're go cycling back to last Friday, we're going to get into the review of SmackDown, but you had Randy Orton, and Cody Rhodes out there fighting the new Bloodline, only to get demolished again. Cody Rhodes was hung up on the ropes, only to watch as Randy Orton got triple power bombed on the announce table, just like Paul Heyman got the week before, and then Cody got the spike to the throat, and he was basically hung to dry. He was not getting up from that. So I mean, where can WWE go next week? I mean, a complete demolition. Like Kevin Owens is next. Obviously, he wasn't there because he was taking care of his mother. He'll get wind of this and then try to fight the Bloodline. He said himself that he'll fight the Bloodline all his own 4-on-1. He doesn't care. So maybe we get Kevin Owens, brutalized next week. But then again, some fans can take it as, oh, it's the same old crap, but it's building to something better. I mean, they even said, Solo said it himself, Jimmy Uso is out, Paul Heyman is out, and Roman Reigns, if you ever come back, I will have you acknowledge me. So that's kind of foreshadowing what's going to happen in SummerSlam. Who's going to come back? So I'm very excited for that.
So the only good thing, the only thing that's going to come out of this, especially like if they're trying to build up to try and bring all the guys back together, Jimmy Uso, Roman Reigns, Jey Uso. I mean, they could possibly go by and try to bring back Sami Zayn in the group, but at the end of the day, I mean, does it really make sense for Sammy to come back in the group? Because like I said, it all started, with the Usos getting the group with Roman, and then when Solo came in with them, they had a fifth guy come in the group where Sami
Right.
Zayn is like not really part of the family. So for Sami to get after the Usos for the tag titles, he wanted to insert himself into the group just so he can get after the bloodline himself. So
Mm-hmm.
what did he do? Went out and got himself a tag team partner, his best friend, which made sense because now the whole group expanded. So now Jey Uso's on Raw, Jimmy's on SmackDown, Roman's on SmackDown, Solo's on SmackDown. So you really thought to yourself, like, Jey Uso is the only person that's far away from his family. And now, how are they going to play out into that group where they have to go and get Jey Uso from Raw to come, even for just a couple months, just to come over to SmackDown? Or what they could possibly do is maybe jump shifts from SmackDown to Raw and start feuding with Jey Uso and attacking him on Raw. So that way it makes him go from Raw to SmackDown. So that way they go back and forth, you know. But
Yeah.
when you look at it in a different way, um, especially from that angle, I feel like it's gonna get a lot better coming in after SummerSlam because I don't know if they want to just bring Roman Reigns out at SummerSlam to attack Solo and cost him the match, but I really feel like within the next 2 weeks leading up to SummerSlam, they gotta push the button and say, "Hey Jimmy, I need your help. Hey, once we get to SummerSlam, Roman's coming back. Roman's gonna be the guy that takes care of Solo and the whole group." But now, when everybody's the 1 week after Roman does come back, everybody's attacking Roman Reigns. So it's like,
Right.
okay, now we gotta have that Civil War match going on. So when it leads up into Bad Blood, now we're getting another Solo Roman Reigns match, supposedly at Bad Blood. Now we might be getting a Hell in a Cell match going into October between the two of them before they go into a real cage match in the War Games. So um, they could go WWE could go either route with that, but I really think if they stick to their guns and say, you know what, let's do the Hell in a Cell match between Punk and McIntyre, and we'll do a double Hell in a Cell match between Roman and Solo. So that way,
Yep.
even if they do that, then we can push ourselves into the Survivor Series. Now we have a war games between new bloodline versus old bloodline. Because then you're looking at Solo, Tama Vailu, Jacob Fatu. So if they want to go the 5-on-5 matchup at War Games, we're going to be looking at maybe getting Zilla Fatu into this. Where does he end up? WWE's been trying to contact him and see where he ends up between the old bloodline versus new bloodline. People had thought on WrestlingInc.com or ProWrestling.com, all these websites, where people thought Jacob Fatu was going to sign himself with the Usos and Roman Reigns, but that's not the case now. We look at Jacob Fatu and sign himself with Solo Sikoa. Maybe Jacob Fatu is the wild card in all this.
Right.
Maybe we get that heel turn going to a babyface, so that way if Solo has to go find himself another partner, Zilla Fatu comes in and he's part of the new bloodline. So then Jacob Fatu's with the Usos and Roman Reigns.
Hmm. So you would want Jacob Fatu to align himself with Roman in the old bloodline.
So if that would be the case, and they can maybe simply put themselves in that predicament, maybe I want to say maybe after Bad Blood in October, we could have a heel turn on Solo. So like maybe Solo is in a tag match with Jacob Fatu on SmackDown, and we literally get somebody messed up or whatever, and he tells Jacob Fatu to acknowledge the tribal chief, and he literally gets attacked by all three members of the bloodline on Jacob Fatu, and then here comes Roman Reigns, Usos to make the save. So now we're looking at Jacob Fatu as the babyface now with the Usos and Roman Reigns at War Games. So instead of Zilla Fatu coming in and being the new guy with Roman and the Usos, now we have the wild card Jacob Fatu, with Jacob Fatu and um, Roman and the Usos. So
Yeah.
with Jacob possibly being the wild card in all this, maybe by after Bad Blood, he could possibly join Roman and the Usos by War Games.
I believe Omaga's son is still, training to make a WWE, return or debut. So maybe he'll align himself with the old bloodline. But as soon as Roman comes back, we're gonna kind of see where everything goes as far as what's happening at Survivor Series. But you mentioned Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. That's something I wanted to bring up. Creatively, when Roman comes back, it might be something that no one really thought of. Just like, we really didn't. We knew Punk was going to screw Drew McIntyre out of the World Heavyweight Championship at Glasgow, Scotland. But the way the way they did it was so genius. I mean, you had the ref down, and McIntyre wanted another ref to come in, and that ref was CM Punk. We didn't know it at the time. We only saw the back of his hair, but he counted 1, 2, and it was Punk in a ref shirt. Now, I don't think anyone had that on their bingo card, and everyone lost their minds.
Right.
I don't know what the creative plans are for Roman Reigns. All we know is he's coming back in some shape or form, but we don't know what he's going to do as far as, you know, we really don't know. I mean, all we know is he lost the match at Mania, and Solo Sikoa said he failed to, uh, he failed his word to keep the title, and that was I think last week's final segment of the new Bloodline. So Solo was obviously pissed off at Roman for losing the title.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how everything goes. I mean, so SmackDown last week, we're gonna cover SmackDown, then we're gonna cover Money in the Bank, which we kind of did, and then we're gonna cover Raw, what happened last week, and then SmackDown. We're gonna cover as well. Um, let's see, where can we start? So Damian Priest, he successfully defended his match at Money in the Bank against Seth Rollins, but then CM Punk um, in Seth's words, stuck his nose where it shouldn't have belonged for him to get revenge on Drew McIntyre. He beats up Drew McIntyre, calls Drew McIntyre the mask. Not only him, but Seth Rollins as well. If you had a gun to my head and you asked me which is the better feud, CM Punk and Drew McIntyre or CM Punk and Seth Rollins, you'd have to shoot me because I really can't tell which is. I mean, they're both great feuds. From all the
Um.
yeah,
So, you make good points with both storylines coming about within the whole year and a half now between Punk, Rollins, then you got Punk and Drew McIntyre. I feel like when Rollins came back towards Money in the Bank. I feel like they need an upgrade only because they didn't want Monday Night Raw to be sour with not having Punk there from being hurt and Rollins not being hurt. So all you would have is Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, or a Gunther being on Raw.
Yeah.
But without having their top baby faces there on Raw, it kind of made it kind of a little sour just because Rollins wasn't there because Seth Rollins wanted to take time off a little bit because of his back injury and his leg injury, so he wanted to take time off a little bit just to recuperate. And when you recuperated for like a month and a half and you tell to yourself, what, I need to get back in the world title picture. I felt like, me being there does help, guys like a Drew McIntyre, guys like a Damian Priest, guys like Gunther, make them bigger stars as like Seth Rollins would say,
Right.
those top prospects on Monday Night Raw where they can have guys like battle out for the world title. So it'd be like saying like if Rollins is not there, we need somebody else to be there just to be the top babyface. Because think about it, if you don't have a CM Punk there, you don't have a Seth Rollins there, we don't have a top babyface going on Monday night. We don't have anybody that's there that's going to take the title away from a guy like a Gunther or Drew McIntyre or Damian Priest. And if you keep CM Punk uh, keep coming back just because he's injured doesn't mean he can't show up on Monday Night Raw just to keep the feud going between him and Drew McIntyre. So the story plays out so well because like we said on the last episode, like CM Punk and Drew McIntyre's rival has been going on since January. And when you look at it into WrestleMania this past year, we knew that CM Punk was going to try to screw out McIntyre not once for the title, but twice.
Yeah.
And when you saw the WrestleMania match between him and Rollins, like we've seen the match so many times, but at what point does CM Punk get involved in the match? And you say, okay, well now we know Damian Priest is going to catch it in because we need a fresh guy to give us a fresh start for the world title. So if Rollins is losing the title, we need somebody to come in and have a fresh start being the world champion. Damian Priest was that guy.
Yeah, for sure.
If you remember a couple weeks ago, and I know this is a little off the subject, but if you remember a couple weeks on Monday Night Raw when Damian Priest and Jey Uso were talking to each other in the ring, Jey Uso basically told Priest, hey Uso, like we're the top two guys here on Monday Night Raw. Because if you remember when Jay came to Raw, he was going to be the main event Jey Uso. He wants to be the top guy with whoever steps up with him the whole time. And when you look at now where we're at going into SummerSlam, now we have Damian Priest versus Gunther for the world title. So that plays out. If that does play out, and even if Priest kept the title on himself for 3 months going into from WrestleMania, do we have a change from Damian Priest go to Gunther? So when Gunther keeps the title for 6 to 7 months here on out to next year, who takes the title from Gunther? That's the $1 million question. And guys, I hope you're listening to this. Who's going to be that number one guy that takes the world title off of Gunther if it does come to next year with him being a world champion?
I mean, with John Cena retiring, his retirement tour being next year being his final year, and him chasing 17 if that ever happens. I mean, people are saying they want a John Cena versus Gunther, and John Cena beats Gunther to become number 17, but that doesn't make sense because that title was just created last year. It's not the WWE Championship that has been with the company since the 60s.
Right.
No.
It does make sense because you got to think right now the world title, like when you look at the design logo of it, the front of it, John Cena was, I think it would have been his, well, I can't really see his last one, but if you remember back about maybe, I want to say what, 6 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, when John Cena first held the world title and he beat Chris Jericho when he came back from his injury.
Yeah.
John Cena last held the world title back in 2009. I don't think anybody remembers this, but when John Cena first won the world title from Chris Jericho, that was John Cena's very first actual world title that John Cena won. But if
Huh.
he wants to go after the legitimate WWE title, I really say that by WrestleMania, and I'm hoping I'm correct, I would really love to see a famous rival for him to end his career with either CM Punk or Randy Orton at WrestleMania.
Yeah, either or of those men would be a
Because
great pick for Cena.
I think having those two guys face him at the end of his career makes more sense than facing a newcomer because um it would feel like when John Cena fought Austin Theory last year for the United States title, it didn't really have that mania vibe between the match because it just felt like it
No, it
was filmed
doesn't.
so short when Cena came back that year, and you know, like he felt like he couldn't keep himself in the ring. It just felt like 2012 all over again with him. Like he had all these losses going into WrestleMania 28 against The Rock, losing, you know, beating Brock Lesnar at Backlash or Extreme Rules. Sorry, excuse me. And when he won the Rumble the following year, and he beat The Rock at Mania 29, that's when we want the John Cena to like come back and probably win the title again. So, it would make perfect sense. Like if he jump system stuff to SmackDown, so he can fight like guys like Randy Orton, or like we can get like a title unification again, maybe at WrestleMania, and we can have one belt. So when John Cena retires, uh, 17-time champion, maybe we get one champion for both shows. So that way we like literally instead of doing separate belts anymore, I say we just do one belt for both shows.
Um,
Because that way everybody gets a shot at that title and not worry about getting a shot at this title, this title, this title. Like we get that one world title that everyone wants to go after,
yeah, but
and you can face whoever you want on both shows.
so here's the problem with that. I mean, the roster is so deep and it's so vague. I mean, you look back 2003. I remember going to Raw in 2003. You had the split rosters. I mean, then again, you had, I believe Rock was the champion. He was a floating, world champion. But I don't know, dude. I feel like, with social media being, the way it is, and people crying about how someone's not a champion here or someone's not a champion there. Having two titles kind of eases that band-aid, so to speak. I mean, they're even considering doing United States and Intercontinental Championships for the women, which I'm fine with. But like I've said, if they're going to do that, they need to get rid of the tag championship. Now I understand like women they want equality, from the men. They want the same set of titles, especially the tag team championships. I mean, you could say the same thing for Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. I mean, they were the tag team champions, but they're singles wrestlers, and it's kind of stifling their momentum being tag team champions. Whereas there were going like so DIY are the champions now, and Grayson Waller, Austin Theory, it looks like they're going to be split. So we're going to have them as singles competitors again, probably eyeing that United States Championship when LA Knight wins against Logan Paul. And that was another segment on SmackDown. We had LA Knight coming out of Nick Aldis's office with a contract in hand, and he said, so it's official: LA Knight versus Logan Paul at SummerSlam. Nick Aldis signed it, LA Knight signed it, but Logan Paul has not signed it yet. We're going to get Logan Paul live this coming Friday on SmackDown. We'll see if he signs it or not. Being the prick that he is, maybe he won't. Maybe like, dude, you don't deserve my United States Championship. But we'll see. I mean, WWE is looking at eight matches for SummerSlam. We've got Cody Rhodes versus So let's go. That was confirmed. We have um, Logan Paul versus LA Knight. That's almost confirmed. I'm sure it will be confirmed by Friday. We have Gunther versus Damian Priest for the World Heavyweight Championship. We have Bailey versus Nia Jax. We'll probably get. I mean, I'm flip flopping here, but from Raw to SmackDown. But if we're talking about SummerSlam, we've got the Intercontinental Championship. Are we gonna do Sami Zayn and Braun Breaker again, or are we gonna do a triple threat? I mean, we're having Ilya Dragunov versus Sami Zayn on Raw tomorrow night.
Um, I mean, and the thing is that like this is it's not because I don't like the idea of Sammy being champion right now since he's won it since WrestleMania. I just feel like you could throw like sticks and stones at him every single week, and you would think instead of having like an Intercontinental Championship match at the pay per view, let's do it weekly. Like people are always saying, like let's make the world title weekly, like every Monday night or every Friday night because it's televised TV. Like we want to have viewership watch these matches every single week. So, and especially like having Sami Zayn defend the title every single Monday, just so when it gets to the pay per view, we don't know exactly when he loses that title. So, you know, people are saying maybe Braun Breaker, in his early career, come up from the main roster. Does he really get his first title match going into Money in the Bank? And we already knew at that point he's not winning the title because you just got brought up to the main roster, not even after WrestleMania. And you would think, what, 2 months in, you're winning the Intercontinental Championship just because you've been here for 2 months? Like, you got to look at your NXT run where when did you first win the NXT title? It took you like, what, 2.5, 3 years to win the NXT title. You're telling me that when you come up to the main roster, that you already been here for 2 months and you're getting a title shot just so you can be Intercontinental Champion going into SummerSlam. No, that's not going to work with me. You want to be champion, you got to give yourself at least a year or two for you to be a champion. And do I think he becomes champion within that time? Yes. Is it going to be the Intercontinental Championship? I don't know. We don't know. But we have to see going into SummerSlam. Yes, what you said. Do we get that triple threat match going to SummerSlam between Braun Breaker, Sami Zayn, and Dragunov? Do we get that? Because especially if we do get that and we get that triple threat match, you know, I could possibly see maybe a title change if it's a triple threat match. Because I can't really see Sammy keeping title if it's a triple threat match. If it's gonna be them two and him. But if we get the rematch from Money in the Bank between Braun and him, I don't know. Maybe we switch titles and get Braun Breaker the title and let him keep title for a couple months until he loses it then. But I would like to see because right now, like Braun Breaker's on a rampage right now. Even if he's not winning matches or he's losing by disqualification, count out, whatever. Do you want to see him as champion right now as it's coming along? Maybe. I feel like in this timing right now, coming towards the end of the year, I would like to see in the year future him being a world champion by 2025 or 2026.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you look at WWE with their formula for the big men, they squash people left and right, and they build them somewhat, but they've handled Breaker pretty well. I mean, he was on SmackDown, via Nick Aldis, and then the Raw, and then the draft happened after WrestleMania, and then he got drafted to Raw, and then he just became a big problem. He went haywire. He started tackling people in the backstage and beating them up. I mean, you can continue to do that, but at the same time, it's going to get stale. You need to have something, better, for that character. And I think a title, on him would kind of elevate his character, but at the same time, it's kind of ironic, Gunther had the Intercontinental Championship and how dominant he is, and now you have Braun Breaker seemingly getting the Intercontinental Championship just as dominant. I mean, who's going to stop him? I mean, I say the same thing with the new bloodline. Like, it seems like we have all these factions. I mean, look at the Wyatt Six. I mean, we're going to get into them a little later, but like, you know, their motive is pretty clear. Like, they're back. Inside of Bray Wyatt, and they're back. To haunt or to kind of attack people that have betrayed, family or friends, and like they're attacking Chad Gable. And if you remember, on Monday when Chad Gable was backstage with Adam Pierce, literally right after the video aired, um, Chad Gable was with Adam Pierce. He's like, did you see that? The White Six is after me. Like, I need some protection. Meanwhile, like, I think later on we saw us, kind of in the backstage, Chad Cable talking to, what is it, the Creed brothers. Anyway, so Adam Pierce and Chad Gable, they're talking, and then Chad Gable, goes on his way. Adam Pierce opens up his door to his office, and there in the chair is Bo Dallas. Now, that's a cliffhanger. I mean, we're gonna find that out tomorrow night too. I mean, we got Rhea Ripley back. We're gonna see what's gonna happen with that. You know, what's gonna happen with Liv Morgan. What's gonna happen to Dominic, and then we have the cliffhanger. What's gonna happen with Bo Dallas? And tomorrow night's gonna be another interesting Raw as far as story.
So
Go.
so the good thing about um everything coming to fruition when it comes to after a pay-per-view that just gets done, you think that like we get more surprises coming out week in and week out, and for Rhea not to wait until SummerSlam for her to get her hands on Liv, I kind of think it was perfect timing. Just because you got to think about it, they just did Money in the Bank. When was she gonna pop back out and finally like take care of the business? Like, was she gonna wait till like right before SummerSlam to come back? Because that would not be cool at all. Just to have her come back a week before SummerSlam, and then right there. Now, if that was a Vince McMahon move, Vince McMahon would have done that.
Yes.
Like, waited for her to like do the week of SummerSlam for her to come back. Then we get the match between Liv and Rhea Ripley for the women's title. But
Mhm.
the thing with Triple H is in control now. He wants her to do an early appearance on Monday was because so that way they can build on the storyline between Dom, Liv, and Rhea.
Yes.
You know, now I was thinking maybe by Bad Blood, I want to say, or Bash in Berlin. I think we get a mixed tag team match because I don't know if I've been hearing rumors or not. I don't know if it's true. Do we get Buddy Murphy back in WWE and team up with his wife? And do we get the Dom Liv uh, situation between that and Rhea and Buddy Murphy? Because if so, I would be down to see that. I think it would be great.
So
But at the end of the day, I don't really
yeah,
see Buddy Murphy coming over from AEW to be with his wife because, you know, why bring somebody in when he's not really part of the storyline? Now maybe looking at maybe getting Damian Priest involved.
yep.
So that way do Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley versus Dom and Liv. Who knows? We don't know yet. But all I know is right now we're getting the Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley world title match at SummerSlam. Just
Yes.
so we know right now.
Do you see Liv? Sorry, do you see Rhea Ripley getting her title back at SummerSlam?
No,
No.
I as much as I hate saying that, I do see her getting it back, but not
Mhm.
at SummerSlam.
So where do you
Maybe by Bad Blood or Survivor Series, I do see her getting it back.
where do you see the story going from a SummerSlam onward?
Um, I had a great idea when I first saw them kissing a couple weeks ago, and I think it might go for another maybe a month or two until Rhea came back. And I think what's going to probably happen is Rhea's going to go back to being a babyface, and I don't now. Some people were saying maybe she gets her old theme song back from when she first came in instead of going to the darker theme song, because if that's the case and she goes back to being a babyface, I can see people like being on her side more than being on Liv Morgan's side, because now they're just doing it like the opposites where Rhea was the heel and Liv was the babyface. Now you're turning everything around in reverse. Now you got Rhea as the babyface and Liv as the heel. So so now when they come together, in this situation, I can see them possibly maybe locking horns, and the whole revenge story between the two of them could possibly end at Bad Blood. And I do think at that pay per view, I do see Rhea Ripley winning the women's title back. So, in other conclusions too, I actually kind of thought this through too. Um, I kind of think if Rhea wins the title back by October, um, I do see her having newer feuds with newer people and not just the same people she's fought already. Uh, I do think by maybe WrestleMania, I think she gets into a triple threat match with people from maybe SmackDown or NXT, and I think she might put on maybe the best Mania match she's ever had in probably years.
Mm, yeah. Let's see. So going to let's see, we covered Liv and let's see, we covered Rhea and where can we go now? Hmm. So like I said, WWE is looking at 8 matches on the SummerSlam card. What other matches could you see on that card?
Okay, so uh, so let me see. I have them right here. So right now, I have. So right now we have Logan Paul versus LA Knight
Mm-hmm.
U.S. title match. We do have. Um, so if he's cleared by SummerSlam, they said we do see CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre if he's cleared. If not, it's going to happen by Bad Blood by October. Um, we already know that Drew McIntyre, and mentioned by him, Gunther and Damian Priest are fighting for the world title at SummerSlam. So
Mm-hmm.
we already know that's a doubt in. Um, Now here's another question too. I think people are kind of awkward. Do we see John Cena maybe fighting at SummerSlam this year? Because if so, and it might be his last SummerSlam, uh, do we see him fight this year's SummerSlam or next?
I
That's
would do
going to be the biggest question going into this year's SummerSlam.
So apparently, John Cena changed his mind at the Pro Scrum. He said his last match will be at WrestleMania 41, but that's not the case anymore. So he's going to ride out 2025 of December and then call it at the end of the year for next year. So I would do next year for SummerSlam, him wrestle.
So apparently I saw on WrestleTalk.com that he is going to try to do 30 to 50 dates next year. So if he's going to be wrestling that much next year to get into his farewell tour, I could see him maybe wrestling maybe 10 times in 1 month,
Hmm.
each month, just so he has a little bit under his belt. They put him in tag team matches on a live show. They can do a triple threat match on a show. It depends on what he does. We already know he's gonna be wrestling. He's gonna be wrestling at Royal Rumble and Elimination Chamber next year. So we already know that's happening. Going back to the SummerSlam card, we do see Bailey versus Nia Jax for the women's world title. Uh, if that's going to be the case too, and I did see something a little bit awkward on Friday Night SmackDown with the whole segment between Bailey, Nia Jax, and Tiffany Stratton.
Yeah.
Tiffany time. Uh, if we do we crown a new champion at SummerSlam, and if so, is it going to be Tiffany Stratton?
Um, I think Bailey is she's a really good women's champion, but as far as the creative for her is concerned, I don't think it's yeah, I don't think it's fair to keep the title on her because where has this I mean, she's kind of done with damage control, obviously, for Mania. So where has her story been other than being with Nia Jax? Ever since she beat Damage Io Sky at Mania and was done with damage control, where is she exactly gone? You know, creatively.
I feel like she's got a lot in her. I think ever since she's won the title from Io Sky at Mania, I think being done with damage control right now,
Mm,
they're kind of looking at breaking that group up anyway. I see it happening within the next couple weeks. So we could possibly see maybe like Dakota Kai fight Bailey for the women's world title if she beats Nia Jax at SummerSlam. Now, I don't know. I don't know if Bailey's going to hold the title much longer. We don't know if she's going to hold it into going into next year. We do have a couple more girls that might be stepping up to the plate, and hopefully it might be Tiffany Stratton holding the women's world title coming up soon.
yeah,
So, um, if Tiffany Stratton does cash in at SummerSlam, I do see her holding it maybe till Mania because I can see a big match at Mania next year where we get Tiffany Stratton, Bianca Belair, or maybe a Jay Cargill going to WrestleMania next year. But
mhm.
things could be lopsided. It just depends on who's she faces next year coming out of Royal Rumble. Um, but I would really love to see a match between Bianca and Tiffany Stratton next year going to WrestleMania.
That would be cool. I would like to see that, but I think WWE is aiming towards Bianca versus Jade, the money match. A lot of fans want to see it. I mean, I'm gonna put it out there, but Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair, who does the better moonsault? Tiffany, clearly. Um, but other man, I mean, Tiffany Stratton, I mean, I know she's on Raw, but if we were to do like brand versus brand, I could see Tiffany Stratton versus Lyra Valkyria. I mean, there's so much talent, and that's another thing. You know, keeping the roster split. I mean, you have one set of women on one division and another set on the other show, and what I mean, you look
You want
back
to
at
know what's
the
funny? I'm sorry to cut you off,
yeah,
but you want to know what's really funny
what
is I saw the post show for Money in the Bank, and I don't know if you caught on to Tiffany Stratton's post interview. She was talking about Trish Stratus being her idol, and she did say she would love to get in the ring with the goat. So maybe in the next year or so, if Stratton is women's champion by WrestleMania, could we see maybe a triple threat match between Stratton, Charlotte, and Trish? I
I
mean,
mean.
we could
Oh,
possibly see that.
I mean, at 41, we could just get Tiffany Stratton versus Trish Stratus. Just a one-on-one match. And I wanted to bring this up to you. Speaking of the women, I was on Twitter scrolling through on my computer, and then somebody noticed that after Nia Jax, um, who did she face? Naomi. Who did Nia Jax face last night? Do you remember?
Nia Jax fought. Oh, I know it was. Let's see. On SmackDown.
Yeah.
SmackDown. I know it was. God, now it's ringing a bell. It was Nia Jax versus Oh man, who did she fight? I know because I know Nia Jax won. Who did she face? Uh, God, man, my brain right now is so lost right now. But I know Nia Jax won her match on SmackDown. Like I can't remember who she beat, but I remember because you know what it was? It was Mia Chum, and she went to go hit Nia Jax with the kendo stick,
Yeah.
and Nia Jax did the Annihilator to her to win the match.
So after that match, Nia Jax held up the finger, the one, and people are asking, is Nia Jax going to join the Bloodline? Now, if she is going to join the new Bloodline, that kind of confirms that Jimmy is going to join the old Bloodline. So that way we can get Naomi, because Naomi's not doing much either. We can get Naomi with the old Bloodline, with Jimmy Uso, Jay Uso, possibly Sami Zayn. You know, if Sami Zayn loses that title at SummerSlam, we know what direction he's going into. And
If
then you
Sammy
go,
if Sammy loses the Intercontinental Championship to Braun Breaker or Dragunov, if we get the triple threat match going to SummerSlam, I could totally see Sami Zayn coming back and doing the Bloodline storyline going to War Games this year.
yeah, and that's another. People. You know, Jay Uso should have won the Money in the Bank. LA Knight should have won the Money in the Bank. That's not the story that we're leading towards. It's
Right.
McIntyre and CM Punk. That's the story. You keep talking about Bad Blood, and it looks like we're going to get that in October between McIntyre and Punk. I mean, match one is SummerSlam between the two. Match two might be, I don't know, Bash in Berlin or somewhere in between. And then we have October, for Bad Blood. That'll be match three inside Hell in a Cell, and that'll end the feud. And then from there, we'll get Seth Rollins and CM Punk kickstarted again, which will be great in its own right. I mean, they had a promo battle between the two on Monday, and it was great. I loved it.
So I really thought that like when Uso went on the top of the ladder, two things caught my eye. If Jay Uso wins the briefcase, you know, how does his storyline end up by WrestleMania if he wins the briefcase? Because now we're looking at, not even just him being the Money in the Bank. We're looking at like, what does this do for Jay Uso heading into Mania next year? Because whether or not like he holds it for that long, whether he holds it until Bad Blood, Survivor Series, who knows? Maybe the beginning of the year
Hmm.
for like Netflix when Netflix goes to when Raw goes to Netflix next year. We don't know. But and number two for him was um how's that gonna conceal into the bloodline storyline going into the Survivor Series with him being with Money in the Bank? All those questions were gonna try to be answered at Money in the Bank. So it's like, do you really feel like Jey Uso had a chance to win that Money in the Bank?
No.
Now we all thought to ourselves that Monday prior when Drew McIntyre told everybody that he was winning Money in the Bank, that when he said that on promo, I was leaning towards that right away because you know when Drew McIntyre won the Money in the Bank, I said, man, CM Punk's really gonna fuck this all up for him big
Uh,
time. And the other thing too was now we're getting somewhere with the whole Drew McIntyre CM Punk storyline. So when Punk cost Drew the cash in and Money in the Bank, that kind of concealed everything because now we're heading into SummerSlam. Drew McIntyre has no opponent. So now, like I said, if Punk is cleared by SummerSlam in the next 2 weeks, we're getting the match between him and McIntyre at SummerSlam. But do we do like I said in the last episode, do we do a best out of 3 between the two of them? Because if that's the case and he's cleared by SummerSlam, we could have a SummerSlam match, a Bash in Berlin match, and a Bad Blood match. So we get all 3 matches heading into October between McIntyre and Punk.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do see maybe if Punk is not cleared within the next 2 weeks, I think they're gonna hold off until Bad Blood to hopefully get their match going. But I would like to see them do the 3 matches between the two of them because I would love to see what happens when they do get into the cell match by Bad Blood. And I don't know if you remember at Money in the Bank, the post interviews after the show was on, somebody asked Punk about maybe doing Bad Blood Hell in a Cell going in October, and the look on his face when he shook his head, you know, I think he might be onto something. I think we definitely get that Hell in a Cell match between McIntyre and Punk going into Bad Blood for the anniversary of Bad Blood.
Yeah, but the interviewer said that would be their first match, not their last one, and that's where that reporter, he doesn't know what he's talking about. You don't want the first match of a feud on Hell in the Cell. You
if
know, that's
if
a
if
kind
we
of a
do if we do if we do Punk McIntyre match 1 at Bad Blood, then this whole storyline has literally gone psycho because we went from January all the way to October to now we're looking at the maybe 2025 where do we go from here with these 2 guys? Because now we're already heading into the Survivor Series with nothing. Do we get a 5-on-5, then pick each other's partners and go on another war game? So now we have 2 war game matches going on Survivor Series. So they picked their own team.
yeah.
Where now you can just look at each other saying, you know what, let's see this. I would rather see them do a 3 matches from SummerSlam going all the way to October. Because now we've already had the 3 matches in hand. So now, like, Punk could win match 1 at SummerSlam, maybe by DQ or count out. We go to Bash in Berlin. McIntyre wins match 2. Now we have to have the 1-on-1 contest going to match 3. So now we're looking at match 3 in the anniversary of Bad Blood. We're getting the Hell in a Cell. So now we're looking at match 3 going to Bad Blood.
Yeah.
And if somebody's coming out of that match right there, I'm giving the match to Punk. Only because I feel like McIntyre's had his chances on the world title so long where he was champion during COVID. And I want a fresh world champion. Like, if Punk, now, people are going to ask, now, if Punk beats McIntyre at Bad Blood in the Hell in a Cell for a 3rd time, where does that go with Punk heading into Mania? Because a lot of people are spectating that we do get Seth Rollins and Punk at Mania next year, which we already know that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
But is it going to be for the world title, or do we get a 1-on-1 contest between the 2?
I don't think that match needs a title. I would say a 1-on-1 for sure.
So I feel like they've prolonged their rival because ever since like Punk came back at Survivor Series in 2023, and when Seth Rollins saw him come back, it put a fire into Seth Rollins' eyes because he now knows Punk's back, and they want to have their match We all thought at Mania 40 we were getting the match, but when Punk got hurt at Rumble, now that fucked every plans up. That fucked everything up. So now we gotta wait another year at WrestleMania to watch this match. You know what I'm saying? So now we weren't getting the match last or Mania 40 because of Punk's injury. So now we gotta wait another year for the match to happen.
It's
I mean,
okay because look at the feud we're getting. I mean, it's been great so far with McIntyre. I mean, he's he's a loose hinge. He's going crazy. He elbowed Adam Pierce at the after the Money in the Bank press conference thing. He decked Adam Pierce. I didn't even think it was him. He got suspended. Punk went on Raw, said what he needed to say. Seth Rollins comes out. They both talk. Punk apologizes to Rollins for getting in his business, but he needed to take care of his own business. Now we're getting Drew McIntyre. Um, you know, because CM Punk said lift his fine, lift his suspension. So we're gonna hear Drew McIntyre talk tomorrow night. We're gonna see what he has to say.
so if we get Drew McIntyre coming back tomorrow, and if CM Punk is there in Dayton, Ohio tomorrow night, I do see them signing a contract for SummerSlam if Punk is cleared.
Mhm.
If Punk is not cleared by next week, I see their match coming maybe by Bash in Berlin, and then we get the two matches between Bash in Berlin and Bad Blood. But
Okay.
like I said earlier, I would like them to have the match at SummerSlam because now you want the three matches ahead of yourself because you want to have at least enough time to keep building the match up because McIntyre didn't like if Punk wins to SummerSlam, he doesn't like to win. I want to get my win back. So what do? Go to Bash in Berlin,
Right.
where over in Europe they like Drew McIntyre. So over in Europe, you go to Bash in Berlin, that gives Drew McIntyre the advantage. Drew McIntyre gets the win. Now you're going into Bad Blood in October. Now both guys have one-on-one win on each other. So who's getting the third match and who's getting the second fall? Because now we're looking at best out of three. So whoever gets the next fall out of that wins it all. So we're gonna have to do a third match going into Bad Blood because there's no way in hell we wait for one match, first match at Bad Blood going into next year because that's just a whole waste of a storyline.
No, it's not.
If we had a whole 8 months of a storyline between the two, heading from Royal Rumble heading to SummerSlam, then they did something wrong. But if we did the right thing and we said, you know what, let's do it this way. You guys fight at SummerSlam, it's gonna be a no holds barred at SummerSlam. Okay? Punk, you win match one. Now, Drew McIntyre just liked the whole idea that he won. So now he's like, you know what? I want a match two. I want a rematch. Let's go to Bash and Blend. Go to my backyard. You're not going to get the second match fall because now you're in my country. Now you're coming back to my home over in Bash in Germany. You're not winning. So this is going to call for a third match heading to Bad Blood. So when we get to Bad Blood and Hell in a Cell, we're going to find out who definitely wins this third fall.
Yeah, it's going to be a great feud. I'll have my popcorn for that one. I mean, speaking of CM Punk, a little side note. I mean, so Xbox they had a free trial for AEW Fight Forever. I've been wanting to play it ever since it came out, but I haven't had the gall to buy it because it just had such bad reviews. I ended up downloading it, and I quite enjoyed myself. I mean, it reminded me of the WCW versus NWO Revenge No Mercy type gameplay, but I don't know if it's because modern games there's just so much content in one game you just don't know what to do with yourself. The content in the game felt really short, and it felt like there was just really not much there. but I mean, for what it was, I enjoyed myself. I mean, it was $60. It's now 40, which is great, but I don't think it's even worth 40. It's probably worth 30. But dude, I was CM Punk for the Road to Elite. They did a good job with the face scan. They had Punk's voice going, "It's clubbering time," and like the fans are cheering too. They really got the audio down. And then number two, for anyone out there who's a Call of Duty fan and a wrestling fan, WWE is announcing a collaboration with Call of Duty, and there's going to be some sort of a skin pack or something. It's coming July 24th. So check out Twitter for that. I don't know. I mean, there are three silhouettes of characters that are they're bringing in. My guess is it's going to be action film related, so maybe John Cena, maybe The Rock and Batista, or maybe we get the Body Ventura from his Predator days in 1987 with his jungle camo and the fucking minigun. Who knows? I think that'll be fun.
If anybody's listening to our podcast, I hope they are. So Heist Man and I have been playing wrestling games for almost the last 20, 30 years now. And these games have been so much fun since we were growing up as children, back when we were 5 or 6. And the way they've been progressing as all the Smackdown games they've made, the In Your House games, the Warzone game they made, the Attitude game they made, anything they've made over the last 30 years has been so good. When it came to the 2K 13, 14, 15, all the way up to 20, the games have gotten on repeat so badly, it made us not want to play the games anymore on gameplay
Dude,
because
it's like Madden every year. It's the same game but a different roster and different game types.
and the good thing about like when we play these games as children, I feel like the gameplay when we played back in the 90s and early 2000s made us realize, you know what, these games were us for us to mentally play as children.
Hmm.
So when you bring out the new 2K games, it's kind of like it's kind of like playing NFL Madden, or it's kind of like playing NBA 2K, MLB 2K. Like it just feels like it's not the same vibe when we played like MLB Triple Play or NFL Street or anything we used to play back in our childhood days.
The arcade
So
video, yes.
like if you take like a WrestleMania arcade game, for example, I played that game so much as a child that I was like, man, just because they only have 8 guys in this game, I'm so glad I bought it. Because as much as it pays me to say, hey, you know what? I think just put more characters in this game. I feel like the wrestlers would be more easier to play as like when they had a Doink the Clown, a Yokozuna, Lex Luger, Brett, Taker, Shawn, Razor. Like I kind of wanted more wrestlers in the game, but just because the mentality of the game felt so uh um well warmth and welcoming for me to play, it just felt like I needed to play it more. But when you look at games now like SmackDown, just bring it, know your role, or shut your mouth, or here comes the pain. These games made me realize as a child, I'm so glad you guys made it because
Yep.
after like even after SmackDown vs. Raw was there, like I liked playing it because it still made me realize that the gameplay was so good that I kept playing it more. But once they started bringing out the 2K11, 2K12, you know, as a child in high school, like I'm like, do I really want to keep playing these games? Because I feel like the gameplay just gets older and older and older as I play it because the gameplay doesn't feel like it used to be the stuff that we played 20 some years ago. And that's why I kind of told myself I need to stop playing because if I keep buying the product for the gameplay, why should I have to sit here and play these things when the gameplay that I wish I had played 20 years ago was the same thing I played back in the things that they came out with now, where I could still play them every time. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it shouldn't be like a newer product because, like, look, our good friend Joseph Hernandez has always told us if it's kind of like watching a movie when you're playing these games on the PS4 or 5 or the Xbox One or Xbox 360. It just feels like virtual movie TV show you're watching when you're playing these games. Because when we grew up as kids, from Smackdown 1 to 2 to just bring it, shut your mouth, whatever, you don't realize today's product is all movie virtual stuff. It's
Hmm.
all virtual. And you don't realize as a kid that we played back then, it was all different. Like, you know, when you play on the TV, you don't realize how good uh, the gameplay, the product, the um, like the matches, everything you used to play on it felt different than you're playing stuff now. Because even though they put new stuff in it, it doesn't feel right that you're playing a newer game that you played 20 something years ago. It doesn't have that same mentality vibe that you played 20 years ago.
No, no, it doesn't. And I mean, when we were kids, playing those games, those, they are about the same age now than as we were in the early 2000s and the 90s. I mean, they could go back and watch gameplay of these games, but until you actually get a controller and play these games, I mean, I do recall my first WWF game was WWF Warzone. I had fun with that, and then as the years went on, the graphics, the gameplay got better. With No Mercy, WrestleMania 2000. But I'm not gonna judge a book by its cover. I am going to try. I know you said it to me when the 40 years of WrestleMania is on sale. You're gonna buy it because they're gonna have a lot of simulator matches from WrestleMania 1 to WrestleMania 8, maybe 13 or 20, and you get to relive those moments.
When you play 2K24 and you play the 40-year showcase of WrestleMania,
Hmm.
you can go back and, like you said, replay and re replay and actually play up from like WrestleMania 1, from Hogan to Piper. You play from Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper for Intercontinental Championship, or you could do Shawn versus Bret, Iron Man match. You could do Bret versus Austin at 13, and so forth. Like you do
Ooh.
Kane and Undertaker at 14. Like you could do so many matches throughout the whole 40 years of wrestling. Where I would love to just not just have to do this move or this move or this move. I want to be able to play my own style of wrestling to try to win the match instead of you tell me what I need to do to make the showcase better. Now,
Right.
like if there was a pinfall, like if there was a pinfall that I did, and like yes, you could stop the match and go to your showcase thing. Or like, oh hey, this is what's happening. Somebody's interfering in the match. That kind of thing. I would like that, but in the game itself, you shouldn't have to tell me what I need to do to win the match. Like I should be able to do whatever I need to do, each move or beat the guy up or do whatever, just to get to the fall. Because I feel like every time they tell you something happens in the showcase, like I shouldn't have to do this job, this job, this job, this job, or this job just so I can win the match, and then you're doing the whole showcase all over again. Like when I did I can't remember. It was a couple years ago on one of the 2K games. It had to be on Austin showcase in 2016, the 2K16, and every time you fought a different guy, like if it was Austin versus, let's say, Brett Survivor Series, like they went through the next couple months, like they showed the Royal Rumble where Austin threw Brett over the Rumble, and it went right into uh, WrestleMania 13 with the submission match. So it would have been much fun in his showcase, or like if you did play the Rumble match, but with everybody that was like in that same Rumble in '97,
Hmm.
instead of having to play the guys that are in the game, because it makes more sense that like, oh hey, Undertaker from back in '97, like I want to play as him, or like Mick Foley when he was Mankind back then. I want to play as these guys in the Rumble match. So when Austin wins the Rumble, I threw out all these guys, which is amazing. But if you're playing guys in the game that are actually in the game, it makes no sense for the game at all. It just makes no sense at all. But like in 1997, when he won the Rumble, like you had the Smoking Guns in the right, you had Bart and Billy Gunn. Then you had Hunter Hearst Helmsley back when he was a Blue Blood. You have all these guys in Goldust. Like you had all these guys that were in the match with him at that time, like Rocky Maivia. You had Vader. You had Mankind. You had Undertaker that came out at number 30 that year, which was perfect because we already knew maybe what was going to happen if like such guys like Mankind, Austin, Taker, Brett, Rocky Maivia, like if all these guys were in the ring together at the end of that Rumble, what was going to really happen? And I remember, I remember watching the Rumble match a couple weeks ago, and just thought to myself, you know what? Maybe what would have happened if Austin had gotten eliminated and Brett did win the Rumble that year? You know,
I
but
don't know.
I kind of understand with the video game because I feel like the video game made more sense if they had different showcases for each game. And I feel like if everybody's on the front cover, they should have different showcases for everybody. If that makes any sense. So, Heist Man, is there anything else you would like to uh, tell a little bit more about, or is there anything on your top of your head that you'd like to get off your chest? I feel like my man is. Heist Man, everything okay over there? Like the Heist Man went to sleep or something.
wrestling shows or the wrestling video games have you, the 22K24, there's a tagline. I wonder what
Uh-huh.
next year is going to be. I wonder what next year, I wonder what the theme of next year is going to be.
So, I mean, the only good thing that I was thinking of the other day when they announced that the 40 years of showcase of this year's WrestleMania was going to be in the game was I don't know how much more they could possibly do. I mean, like, could they do different people showcase every year now, or can they do like, go back to like the Attitude Era things? Like, what can they possibly do to make the 2K games a little bit better year out and year in and year out? Because you can only do so much. You can only do so much to a game where how can you make this game a lot better than the one before?
True. Very true.
Like
I mean, it seems like they have, they've got their rhythm. I mean, they had WrestleMania 20, which was a complete like clusterfuck. So they did, and then for 2K21, they opted to do WWE Battlegrounds, which I thought was going to be like All Stars. I was completely wrong. And then 22, they can't, kind of got back on track, and now they have a rhythm of what they need to do. And like I said, it's just like Madden, but same gameplay, just different graphics, or sorry, different matches and roster. I don't know what else they could do, but what I think that WWE should do is take their mobile games like WWE Immortals. They got all these other WWE games, WWE
Mayhem. Yep.
Mayhem. They
Mhm.
need to put them on PC and console. I think that would be great.
Um, I do like the fact that they are trying a little bit more to do like a virtual gaming of Mayhem or Immortal or uh like a backyard wrestling type game.
Mm,
But I feel like if they could put everything all into one and make it more impactful to a different game that they've made years beyond what they made before. I feel like they could put themselves in a good way of making the game really, really good within the years to come. Because I
yeah,
feel like they've they I feel like if THQ was still around, I feel like they could make themselves a lot better for um for years to come now than they did back 20, 30 years ago. Because now we're looking at like maybe what could they possibly do to up their products? What can they do to up their gaming, their gameplay, everything? What can they do to make the game so much better for kids to play year in and year out? What can they possibly do to make it so much better and the product better for all these kids to play year in and year out?
true. I don't know what I mean. They're probably just gonna do 2K25. I mean, they could do other games in the pipeline, but we'll see. But before we go, what were your thoughts on the YouTube WrestleMania 40 behind the curtain?
So you do bring up a good point when you ask me that. So I did see a couple things when I watched the video, and they they got the they got the storyline right when it came to the match itself between Roman and Cody. I just felt like The Rock being thrown in this was kind of a little off a little bit,
Mm,
only because um people had thought maybe they were trying to do Rock and Roman this year,
right.
but at the same point in time, were they trying to do Cody and Rock this year? What like it had to be something where like it made sense to the biggest WrestleMania of all time. Like we had to see like if Cody was winning the Rumble, who was he supposed to point at the Rumble? Like people were saying, was he supposed to point at Roman? Was he supposed to point at Seth? Like, well, who was he supposed to point at? Because are we getting a match two? Like you already knew we're doing what we did 10 years ago when they did John Cena versus The Rock, because we're already getting two matches back to back years. We're already getting it. So, but who was Cody supposed to point at when it came to him winning the Rumble? Because it clearly wasn't going to be at Roman Reigns from what I saw. So it was either going to be at The Rock. Was it supposed to be at The Rock? Was it supposed to be at Seth Rollins? Who was he supposed to point at? So when you get to a point in the video and you watch things deliberately like point in and point out, did you really see the fact that if you really wanted to watch another Cody Roman match, I felt like the story wasn't really written unless everybody came through at the WrestleMania match. Like we needed everybody in this match. Like from Jimmy to Jay to Solo to Cena to The Rock. Like now our biggest question to this and to end this whole episode, were we supposed to get Stone Cold Steve Austin in this whole ended the whole storyline with this so that way we could see the final boss versus the Texas Rattlesnake face each other? Because when you saw Undertaker come out at the very end of that match,
Yep.
you know, was it really supposed to be like a last minute change up because Austin didn't want to do the storyline because it didn't feel right for him to be there? Because the storyline didn't really make sense for him to be there. But when The Rock is there as a heel, it made sense because if Austin comes out like, we're getting that WrestleMania 18 vibe where The Rock was the heel and Austin still the babyface. So it's like we're still getting that WrestleMania vibe. But The Undertaker and Rock never really fought each other at WrestleMania. So, could have we seen that match before Taker retired at a WrestleMania? Because you know, I felt like we didn't really get to see that last encounter between The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin being in the ring with each other. Because we felt like that was the moment right there that we were supposed to get at WrestleMania 40 to end that whole night. Because would it have made WrestleMania 40 so much better if Austin's glass breaking hit and Cody winning the belt means so much more to WrestleMania 40 than it did when Undertaker came out at the end? I mean, look at it this way: if Austin comes out at that moment, do we get the biggest moment in history where we see both The Rock and Stone Cold facing each other in the ring, during a storyline which it really meant nothing in between both families, you know, and you throw Stone Cold Steve Austin in there for nothing just because it's The Rock and Austin, it's Cody versus Roman. Like we're trying to figure everything out all in one, but when you have that one big moment between The Rock and Austin at that very end of the night, it makes more sense because their rival transputed throughout the whole industry of wrestling. And now we're getting a new era now between Roman and Cody, Roman and Seth, or Cody and Seth, or Damian Priest versus Jey Uso. We're getting newer people now in this new era of wrestling. So when you watch the video from behind the curtain, I felt like everything played out so well through from January all the way up to March. And I felt like we got what we got at that time because it felt like doing the tag team match Saturday night kind of threw everything off for Sunday because we felt like we already knew what was happening going into Sunday. Because when Rock threw out the whole bloodline rule thing for Sunday, oh now we know what we're getting through if that match happens. Because if we're just getting a one-on-one straight up match and Cody wins on Saturday with Seth Rollins, then we're really not seeing Cody Rhodes win the world title on one-on-one.
No. But yeah, dude. We'll see what happens as the weeks unfold. Next up SummerSlam. The stop after that is Bash in Berlin. And then after that, it's I think we're on to Survivor Series. So I mean, it looks like stories are picking up. Stories are getting better. Um, so the reason why Stone Cold didn't show up at 40 is because WWE didn't find a financial, agreement, which is a shame. But then again, Undertaker makes sense because, I mean, look at all the Samoans he had to face: Yokozuna, Rikishi, Umaga. This goes on. So it
It
kind of
does.
made
It does
sense
make
that,
sense. It does make sense.
yeah, yep. So I mean, and all in all, it made sense for Taker to come out, and that was, to hear that gong in the crowd, like, it really popped people. But hey, Stone Cold, we might get it at 41, but only time will tell. But that'll do it for this week, guys. We usually try to do this once every 3 weeks. I mean, we kind of want everything to build and marinate as far as storylines and the shows go on. I mean, we could do this every 2 weeks, but we're trying to find a rhythm. If you guys are subscribed or like this video, check out notifications for when we do go live. T, subscribe to his channel. He does shorts and videos on his own. I do my watch alongs and other video game things. But if you guys are liking this, we have more to come. As the shows progress, as news articles hit, um, we're going to do the best we can to bring the best news we can to you guys, because we're wrestling fans and we care. So, anything else you want to add, dude?
So like Heisman said, like we're trying to do this as much as possible. But in the middle of the brink, I think we figure if we wait every other 2 to 3 weeks just to let everything build up, like storylines, everything up, pay per view wise. Um, Maybe we're gonna try to do every pay per view post show and get through what we need to get through with the pay per views leading up to SummerSlam come up soon, and hopefully Bash in Berlin. So, with all that being said, this has been a great episode. Heist
Yeah.
man, anything you want to add?
Well, I mean, we could go. We could be here all night talking about storylines, but I think what T and I are trying to do is to point out the biggest storylines in WWE and kind of cycle back to where they were, and where they are now. The last couple weeks we were talking about the bloodline, how they're just demolishing the entire roster, especially people that are close to them.
Right.
This will only bring Roman Reigns back. And, I mean, you hear the Roman chants every week. I mean, if Cleveland Stadium had a roof on his head, that thing would be blown off already. When
You know,
Roman comes back.
you know, it's,
LA Knight, Logan Paul isn't it's a match, but it's not that big. Now, Drew McIntyre, CM Punk, that's a big match. Seth Rollins and CM Punk is a good match. That's a big one, but that's not happening just yet. Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan, that's happening. The Wyatt Six, I mean, the last time we spoke, it was that night they were debuting, and it's been great with the segments, from Bo Dallas and seeing the faces of the vignette from the Wyatt Six, um, of who is identified in those masks. I mean, maybe we'll get them in the ring, wrestling. Maybe we'll get me personally. I think having the masks is a symbol and their calling card, but they need to get in the ring and wrestle.
right.
I think the first victims would be the Creeds and Chad Gable. I think if they do the match at SummerSlam, I think that would be a good debut for them to wrestle.
I think it'd be a good starting point because if you look at it this way, like when the Fiend first started, his character, everything kind of built it up to SummerSlam with him and Finn
Yep,
Balor,
yep. That's kind of perfect there. I
and
mean,
I think
you talk about the Fiend being real creepy and almost demonic. Debuting at SummerSlam, you got the White Six, creepy, demonic, almost like a psychological horror. You have them debuting at SummerSlam. I think that would be a perfect swan song, for Bray. I know he's watching over smiling. I mean, that debut was great. It's on my channel. I have a side by side of my reaction and then the post from WWE that they posted the next day. It's got like over 1 million views, maybe 3 million views now. It was just so cool. I mean, if there's anything to come from this, um, WWE needs to get with Halloween Horror Nights and Universal, and they need to do a maze of the White Six at um, Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights. They need to bring masks. They need to do merchandise. They need to do masks for Halloween because those will sell very well.
I think they would sell very well, especially if they're going to be Universal, because people like seeing different horror or designable things that WWE
Yeah,
comes out with year
I'm
in and year out.
I mean, bro, you talk about WWE and Call of Duty collaborating. Call of Duty is one of the greatest, uh, box office games, every year. Halloween Horror Nights happens every year. Thousands upon thousands of people travel to go to Halloween Horror Nights, whether it's in California, Japan, or Orlando. You get WWE collaborating with Halloween Horror Nights and Universal to do a Wyatt Six maze, having the masks dude, they're gonna make so much money. um I don't know who I have to contact, but I'm gonna contact someone, and hopefully this happens, because I it's also funny because this is way off topic, but I mean, I was watching Jaws before this podcast, and I mean, you're looking at the 50th anniversary of Jaws next year. I mean, shit, dude, they could do a Jaws Halloween Horror Night maze for the 50th anniversary. I think that would be great.
I think that'd be great too, especially because like for any anniversary they got going on through the 20th anniversary, 30th anniversary. Now if we're getting up to the 50th anniversary, they have to do something spectacular where it draws people in to see like the life of Jaws and how this movie was about back 50 something years ago, and how it played out so well into both movies coming out, because you know people liked watching the original Jaws and the second one. It felt so real when you go to Universal ride. It's like, man, I feel like I'm in this movie on this boat, and I'm like, oh my god, I
Yep.
feel like I'm in the movie myself
Yeah, the
this whole entire
tagline was
time.
ride the movies. That was the tagline, and I remember going on the Jaws ride, being on the left side of the boat, not knowing that the shark was there almost the whole ride, and it scared the hell out of me. But I had fun.
Well, I'm glad you had fun, because I couldn't imagine seeing myself on that ride, especially on the left side. You would have got your ass eaten up
Oh
pretty
my
bad.
gosh. Oh my gosh. I mean, and then Martha's Vineyard, they're probably going to be doing something next year
I
for the
I hope
50th
I hope so.
anniversary. Yeah.
I hope so.
But yeah, dude, that's gonna do it for us this week. Like I said, we're gonna kind of set our footing of where we want to be. I think the weekend of a pay per view is a good starting point to where we want to be as far as consistency and doing our show. So we're gonna start doing after the Sunday, the weekend of the pay per view. We're gonna go live that Sunday, kind of go over where the stories are developing, what happened during the pay per view, and whatnot. But that's gonna do it for us, guys. I think we covered a lot. You want to add anything?
Uh, According to everything we have talked about today, I'm really, really, really enjoying the fact that this whole CM Punk and Drew McIntyre storyline has been picking up so well ever since January. I'm so glad they stuck to their guns. I'm so glad it's going forward with the whole match hopefully happening at SummerSlam.
I mean,
If
bro,
not,
yeah. I mean, if CM Punk didn't get hurt, and if he didn't get hurt, we wouldn't be getting this feud. It kind
right,
of works out in
right.
its own way.
I feel like yeah, because I think like CM Punk could have been already wrestling a couple matches, even at SummerSlam or at WrestleMania. Like we already would have had the Seth Rollins match at WrestleMania. Maybe by Money in the Bank, we've already would have had have CM Punk win Money in the Bank, have him go into SummerSlam, cash it in, win the world title, and go into next year at WrestleMania as champion. So it's like we don't know right now where his story's going to line up, especially when he gets done with Drew McIntyre. But we're hoping after this feud is over, we are hoping by next year's Mania, we get the Seth Rollins and CM Punk match we've all been waiting for the last 10, 20 years.
Yeah. So we'll see what Drew has to say tomorrow night. But and I'm sure Seth Rollins will come out and interrupt Drew just like he interrupted Punk last week. But
Right.
that's going to do it for us, guys. Have a good rest of your Sunday. Um, and we will see you when we see you, probably after SummerSlam. Looking forward to it.
Sounds good to me. My name is T.
I'm HeisT Man.
We will see you guys soon.